Well, this is Sheila back with part 3. This is the sleeve. I was going to do the whole sleeve and then explain everything, but I think there are a lot of people waiting for another part of this from the sleeve because I'll have done the back and front. I know Carol has, so I'm going to tell you how far I've got with this part, and then I'll tell you up to the armholes, and then I'll come back and do another one and tell you the instructions from the armholes. This one here, I have cast on 54 stitches. That's with the 3.25mm needles. And I've knit 2 by 2 rib, and I've started with knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. And I've done that for 18 rows. But on the last row of the rib, the 18th row, I increased it four extra stitches, but those extra stitches I did at each end. I did it on the first 2 stitches at the end and the last 2 stitches, or well, the nearest 2 in, so that when you start the it don't make any difference. Even if you didn't increase it, you would start with the same thing. But when you start with the pattern here, I'll blow that up a little bit so you can see. When you start with the pattern here, make sure that you start with, so you have the knit stitches over the purl and the purl stitches over the knit for the pattern. Otherwise, if you start them in the wrong place and you have the knit stitches over the knit, you're going to have an extra 4 rows of rib. So anyway, that's explained that. There's cast on 54 stitches, knit 18 rows, add 2 stitches to each end, increase those 2 stitches to each end to 58 stitches, and then increase on the 5th 1 stitch at each end of the 5th row, and then every 8th row. And I made it every 8th row because it's easy to follow, so you know which row that you're going to increase on, because you'll be doing here, you'll be doing a 4 and another 4, so it's at the start of every 8th row of pattern that you're going to increase. And you keep on increasing on every 8th row until you have, I think I'm up to about 74 stitches or 76 stitches, yeah, I'm not sure, until you have 80 stitches. That is for my size, or I'm doing the 42. And then when I get that far to the armholes, I will tell you the how to do the decreasing from there. So this is the completed sleeve, which I have finished, and I have actually started. I'll get all the end out the way. I've started on the second sleeve. I'm going to blow that up a little bit easier to see. There. So like I showed on the other bit of the video, how I added the stitches, cast the stitches on, and then worked up to, told you how many stitches I needed up to the armhole. That was 80 stitches up to the armhole. And then when I got to the armholes, I put stitch markers in, because I don't cast stitches off at the start of the armholes. I just decrease from the start of the armholes. I decrease, I've got it written down in my book here, it's 13, I think. Wait till I find it. And knit 2 stitches together at each end of the row, at each end, at both ends. I knit 2 stitches together on alternate rows 13 times, 13 alternate rows, and that will leave you with 54 stitches. It's up around here somewhere. And then I increase on every row, at each end of every row, 16 times, and that leaves with 22 stitches at the top here, and I cast off those 22 stitches. But it is written down. I'll show what's written down in my book for anyone who wants to follow that. But I have started the other sleeve here, and as you can see, it's the same, the 2x2 rib. Now I started off with 54 stitches, but I increased 2 stitches at each end of the row here, so that when I start the pattern, I'm going to be knitting the rib is 2x2, but the pattern is also 2x2, but we're doing 4 rows and then alternating between those, the knits and the pearls. So the 2 stitches I've cast on, I cast on at the start here. It was on the other side actually when I did this, on the last row of the rib, on the 18th row, because I knit 18 rows of rib, and then I knit the first stitch, and the second stitch I made an extra stitch, and then the stitch after that I made an extra stitch. So when I start off this, I'm going to knit 2 and purl 2 and knit 2 and purl 2, so that the purl stitch will go over the knit stitch and the knit stitch will be over the purl stitch. Otherwise, if I hadn't added those extra stitches and you started with knit 2, purl 2, you would have 4 extra rows of rib, but in a larger size needle. So that was it. Just cast on 54 stitches, add an extra 2 stitches at each end to make it to 58 stitches, and then increase on the 5th row, and then every 8th row until you have 80 stitches, and then carry on. I carried on until I had done 17 inches. That's my sleeve length, which turned out to me was 108 rows, I think. Yes, 108 rows for me. And then decreased on alternate rows, on the next 13 alternate rows, and then on every row from about here, on every row until there were 22 stitches left. And that's the sleeve. So when I finish that, I'll be back with showing how to put the neck on and then how to sew it up. But before that, if anybody just wants to see the instructions, I'll blow that up, see if I can blow it up a little bit more for the sleeves. I don't know if that'll blow up any more for, I'll go with that. Now I'll have to hold it up. It's for the sleeves. I used 325 needles and I cast on 54 stitches and knit 2x2 rib for 18 rows, increasing to 58 stitches on the last row of the rib, and then pattern knit 2, purl 2, increasing 1 stitch each end of row 5, and then every following 8th row until you have 80 stitches. And then I knit to 17 inches, which was 108 rows, and I placed stitch markers for the beginning of the armhole shaping, and then knit 2 stitches together at each end of the next 13 alternate rows. That will leave you with 54 stitches. Then decrease 1 stitch each end of the next 16 rows and cast off the remaining 22 stitches. So that's the instructions for your sleeve. So thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you all when I get the rest done. So bye for now.